The subject matter we will be discussing this week is not for children and could contain explicit subject matter. Parental guidance is suggested. The topic at hand is for informational purposes only, and if questions arise, you should seek out professional advice. You're listening to Our Different Take, episode 11. Welcome, everyone, to Our Different Take. My name is Brian, proud father of two awesome boys, an epic Star Wars fan, and to my left is Matt. Oh, welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. Looking forward to a great podcast today. Should be very interesting and maybe a little crazy.
Probably a little crazy. And to Matt's left, I would like to introduce our newest member of the Our Different Take family, Scott. He will be joining us as our newest co-host. Oh, welcome, Scott.
Well, hello. Hey guys, I'm sorry. I channeled Ronald Reagan there. That's the different show here. Hey guys, excited to be here today. Having a keen interest in the paranormal and the conspiracy theory, so I love this kind of stuff. This is right up my alley. I do have an undergrad degree in psychology, which qualifies me to serve French fries at Burger Place. I also have several graduate years of study in seminary, so I kind of have a little bit of stuff going on with the spiritual side of things. I am married. I have 3 beautiful daughters. Glad to be here.
Very nice. I didn't know you channeled presidents too.
Sometimes it just happens. I gotta quelch him. He sneaks up sometimes.
Brutal.
Right. You got any others you want to?
I don't know. I mean, you'll know when it happens.
Right. We will wait. I mean, we'll wait right now, but if something comes out during the podcast, feel free. I just wanted to take a sec and say thanks to everyone who's been following us and listening to our jibber jabber from the very beginning. It means a lot to us that you actually take time out of your busy day to listen to us. It really does. And it fascinates us. I'm having trouble talking today.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is weird.
That's not too abnormal.
Too much coffee, I guess.
Words are hard.
Before we get started, I put out a post on our Facebook group page about what your oddest job was. And I want to get you guys' take on yours before we hear from our fans, because we had quite a few people chime in there, and there's some interesting ones for sure. So let's start with Matt. What would be your oddest job that you've had?
I've had
that you could talk about live.
I would say, I've had I've had a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of different things from, the automotive world to the aircraft world to, all in between. But really, I think probably the most interesting job I've ever had was a cab driver. I used to drive yellow cab, and I had many amazing adventures in the yellow cab. And it was a lot of times very odd and very awkward.
Was that in Colorado?
Yep, in Colorado. Yeah, drove yellow cab for probably 3 years, nights and weekends, mostly for the fun and adventure of it. Have had guns pulled, have had fist fights in cars, have had people have sex in the back of my cab while I drove them home, have had everything you can imagine happen I never had a baby born, but I have had a lot of crazy things, gunplay, like craziness in cabs, for sure.
What's the most you made, like, on a trip?
I made
the average.
There's a company called Go Fast Sports out there. They make sports drinks and stuff like that. I got a call in the middle of the night to an airport out east, far out east. I forget where it's at, but it was a ways out there. And I picked this guy up and I drove him to the emergency room in town. He had a broken leg, and he explained to me that he was the honcho from Go Fast Sports, and he'd been doing some skydiving that day. And I said, "Oh, did you did you land wrong? He said, no, I just got drunk afterwards and I was riding a BMX bike off this jump and I
grief.
broke my leg at the airport. So I took him to the hospital. He called me back 4 or 5 hours later to pick him up and take him to his car, and he tipped me a few $100. I think it was a $500 trip. It was probably the best trip I ever had. He gave me a free jacket.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
and a free jacket.
Yeah, I still have it.
Wow.
Vortex.
Wow. That's cool. Is that place still in business?
I don't know. It's kind of like a Red Bull thing, Go Fast Sports.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're still around, but
probably. All right, cool. Cab driver. Scott, what about you?
After that, I think everything I would have to say is really boring. I think that I have nothing that competes to people having sex in the back of my car while I'm driving somewhere.
Strangers in the back of your car.
I picked up dog poop.
That's close.
It's similar. It's
yeah.
I got nothing that would even sound interesting compared to that.
Did you pick up dog poop at like just random neighbors' yards, or walk around and just look for it, or what?
Just for fun?
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's something that you do when you're walking past somebody's front yard. Hey, there's I don't know. I just picked it up for people who wanted to pay me for it.
Did you get?
It wasn't recently.
Did you get paid per job or per turd?
By the pound.
I should have asked for a per turd sometimes, because that sometimes they're like these serial pooper dogs out there that really leave some treasures.
No,
and they don't tell you that up front, do they? It's not something that they should. They definitely should.
Well,
what about you, Brian? What do you?
So probably the oddest job I had this for 2 days. I worked at the adult psychiatric unit at a hospital, and I got called in to work overnight one night. And I should have not done this in the first place because I was watching an Eagles game, and so I had to shut off the game. So it must have been a Sunday night, first of all, to go in. And it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and we have to fill out people's charts and stuff like that. And usually it was overnight, so there wasn't a whole lot going on. But it was me, and I was like low on the totem pole. I was not, I was like the lowest person there. And it was me and a nurse. And I was sitting there filling out a chart. And this dude came over, and all he was dressed in was like, the little gown you put on at the hospital, where you're like your butt showing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That thing. That's all he was wearing. And I was sitting down at a desk, and he was standing, and he walked up pretty close to me, and he just started peeing all over the place right there. And the nurse is like, well,
did the gown stop the pee?
It did, but it was running all over the ground. And I mean, thank goodness it did stop it, because I would have got showered for sure.
Like the wearing the face mask analogy, right? There you go.
Yeah, this is way worse. Way worse. And so the nurse is like, well, looks like I know what you're doing. So I took orders from everyone else, and that was the last night I worked at that hospital.
Because of that?
Yeah. Like, forget that. It was sad too, though, because people would come in. I did work one day shift. People would come in, and they would just be medicated. And when the insurance ran out, they would just ship them back out. It was like a revolving door. There was no therapy, and there was no help there whatsoever. It was just
really
a medication turnstile, really is what it was. Yeah.
It's awful.
I'm not getting peed on again. I'm out of here.
Who could blame you?
Right. Right.
I mean,
some people pay for that.
Huh. Are you saying I should have stayed and enjoyed it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm pretty sure that's an acquired taste, Brian.
I mean,
yeah. No, thanks.
Make the best out of every situation.
Well, let's hear what we heard from a few of our listeners. Scott. Oh, no, it's me.
It's
Brian. What are you doing?
Mark.
Golly. So Amos. Amos left us a message. She said she worked at a fish farm. a fish farm. The owners made her walk out in the middle of the fish farm and pick lilies in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Picking lilies, huh? That's
Mhm.
all right then. All right. And,
like electrocution probably would be a bad thing.
yeah. Deep fried fish, I guess. That's kind of,
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not sure how the pronunciation of this is this Fredo?
I like Fredo. Fredo's good.
Fredo? Fredo, he sold Kirby vacuum cleaners. He would. I bet that job sucked.
Very nice.
He would get dropped off on the corner and have to go house to house shampooing a 1 foot square spot in the middle of their carpet. Yeah, I did that too. I should have mentioned that a minute ago on my weird jobs. I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners too, and yeah, it was the weirdest thing. It was even stranger that people would actually let you into their houses. You know, this total stranger.
Really?
Where? In the Dallas Fort Worth area. So I mean, it's not like in the middle of the country where you're going to trust everybody. This is like, you know, the middle of a major metropolitan area, and people that you had never seen before in your life. You stand on their front door with something free. They always give you something free to get you in the door. Now, I'll give you this free thing if you let me shampoo a room in your carpet. And they're going, yeah, whatever. You know, it'll take me 10 minutes, and then it always takes like an hour and a half, and they're trying to get rid of you. I think they do that so that you know, if you're just like, I'll just buy. I did sell one. Yeah, I did sell one vacuum cleaner. Yeah.
I actually, when I had my first shop in the Springs, and I was pretty young then, but I had a guy who came to me on the regular with a Subaru, and he was in charge of all of these kids that he had out selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. And he was the shadiest carpetbaggerist. Like, he was really shady. And you know, he would show up and hang out in my office and drink coffee and tell me about, you know, going door to door and trying to get people to let you clean. And I could never figure out how they did it, but those kids sold vacuums for him, man. They made him money. Crazy.
Oh yeah, and the markups on those things are phenomenally. I mean, I don't even know what they are anymore, but back in the day, it's probably 20 years ago, and I did it. The cheapest you could sell was like $500, but then they would start you at like $2,200 or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Good vacuums. It was just, I like my Shark.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, but yeah. The stories I heard from the salesman on there, you know, people coming in. Yeah, come on in. My boyfriend and I are about to have a threesome. Why don't you join us?
Where can you find a job with awesome perks like
what?
That is awesome.
Where in the world do these people come from? It's just
that is weird.
It was some weird stuff. Anyway, so Sherry said, this is the weirdest job. She just started working at Kohl's. That's it. There's no qualifier as to why that's weird. No offense to any of the other people who work at Kohl's. It's not a weird job to us. You feel free.
Not a weird job. Awesome place.
Okay.
We love Kohl's.
Yeah. And Billy.
They were actually a sponsor of the podcast at one point, weren't they, Brian?
What?
Kohl's?
Oh, yes.
Sponsor.
Yeah. Really?
Oh. Yeah, they were a sponsor.
Awesome place. Yeah, we love them.
That's right.
And Billy worked at a loading dock of a company that shipped, this is interesting, that shipped medical cadavers. He said they were shipped in containers and the parts were shipped in barrels. Now that...
Billy, that is awesome.
Billy, I think you win my prize for that is the oddest job I've ever.
I
wonder if like a barrel ever got tipped over.
Brian, what
like accidentally?
That sound effect.
Oh,
what? That sounds like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
I think that's what Billy heard every day on the job.
Maybe so. They're coming.
Probably.
Billy. With your back to the wall.
Yes. Yeah. That was a zombie sound, by the way, if you didn't catch that.
Next one. Don worked building tracer rounds for the military, and his wife dressed up as a Little Caesars mascot in Vegas. I think building tracer rounds would be awesome. Sounds really interesting to me. That's interesting. What is his wife dressed up like Caesar, I guess, for Little Caesars pizza?
I just remember like those guys just being like Jedi level twirling sign experts, and I don't remember them wearing a.
It's not like Caesar's Palace, right? It's like the pizza place.
It's the pizza place, yeah. Okay. But it must have been crazy hot,
dude.
Wearing a pizza uniform or something like that.
Oh, bad. It's hot with almost no clothes on there. Like brutal hot.
Oh man,
brutal.
Yeah,
brutal.
Okay, Kimberly dressed up like a clown for the Black Eyed Pea grand opening. Clearly an odd job. And Sandra tested vote counting machines 8 hours a day, running fake ballots through the machines. Is that so that you could put fake ballots through the machines, Sandra? Maybe a little conspiracy. I don't know.
We are.
Maybe not.
Interesting. She said she did that for like a week, like 40,000 ballots, and her hands were all cut up from paper cuts and everything.
Something here.
Yeah.
Weird.
I don't know when that was, but still. Odd jobs, everyone. Odd jobs.
There you go.
Here we go.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Our different take.
So this week, we're going to be discussing satanic ritual abuse. So you might ask why we're on this topic, but we felt it was a good progression from our topic last week, which was multiple personality disorder, or dissociative identity disorder is what it's called now. So this might be a new subject to some people, but we'll do our best to describe what SRA is. We'll just call it SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse, the history of it, and then some stories. So we'll all just chip in as we go through this and talk about it, because there's a lot of different takes on all this stuff, right?
Many.
So if we define like what ritual abuse is, so just plain old ritual abuse involves repeated abuse over extended period of time. So the abuse is usually severe and includes torture and killing. There's a lot of sexual abuse, which is, again, the focus is for it to be painful, humiliating. You gain dominance over the victims. And the psychological abuse involves the use of ritual indoctrination, which is like mind control techniques and keeping the victims in a state of terror, mind control. And then that involves disassociation, where the MPD comes in. Now, part of this is satanic ritual abuse, and you guys can chip in anytime with this. But with satanic ritual abuse, it involves, again, more spiritual beliefs. In the United States after World War II, again, there's a book that I'm reading on this called The Transformation of America. And what they talk about in there is a project called MK Ultra that the CIA funded. Like, yeah, it's written by this guy named Mark Phillips, and he worked for the CIA for a while. And it's the story of how he got this lady named Kathy O'Brien and her daughter out of that MK Ultra program, which involved satanic ritual abuse. It involved
I've heard
inducing amnesia and creating different identities in her. So with the different identities, each identity has a new memory. So a lot of the stuff they were doing was hidden in different memories. So MK Ultra was a huge program. And like I said, I got this book off Amazon for about $20, and it's not the easiest read because there's a lot of crazy stuff in there, but it's pretty good read if you're interested in that type of stuff.
I was under the impression that MK Ultra was and it was all about hallucinogenics and mind control.
So are they alleging? They're alleging satanic ritual abuse in MK
Yes.
Ultra? Because I had heard the
Yes.
same thing.
Yeah, that's what they're alleging. And part of it was this lady and her daughter were brought up in ritual abuse and some satanic ritual abuse from the very beginning when they were kids. And it just rolled over into MK Ultra.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
Hmm.
Read the book. Don't wait for the movie.
I won't. Don't worry.
Okay. Some characteristics of ritual abuse. Forced perpetration, being forced to harm an animal or other person. They force you to take drugs. They use restraints and confinement. So that gives you feelings of helplessness. Forced pregnancy and killing of newborn babies. Creation of altars or parts, and sadistic and horrific abuse. Now, again, that's just not ritual abuse, but that's a lot of satanic ritual abuse as well.
Now, do you feel like this is my take on all this when I started reading through it is there's a lot of people that feel a lot of different ways about this. And there's some people out there that'll tell you this is just super pervasive and it's everywhere. And there's a lot of people that say the satanic ritual abuse is very rare. Even Satanists will tell you that sort of thing. That it's not. I think the actual the official Church of Satanism decries all of that sort of thing and says that they're not about eating babies and killing things and all that sort of stuff. But there are some people that kind of build their own cultish, freaky religion out of it, and I think that there are some people that make that a part of what they do. But how prevalent do you gentlemen think this is?
Scott?
From what I was reading, I guess my opinion's kind of shifted on it a little bit, because I used to kind of think maybe this is everywhere, and maybe I don't think that so much anymore. That it seems like, as we're reading through a lot of the characteristics of it, you see this kind of stuff going on everywhere.
Yeah.
In isolation, like maybe not all of the things, and maybe not with a religious component. Like, you've seen a lot of this stuff in the Epistein thing that's going on, where they're doing a lot of the abuse kind of stuff, and it goes along with this. But I don't think that anybody's really alleged that the Epstein thing was satanic ritual abuse. It was just kind of like a bunch of sick-minded individuals who were doing a lot of the things that are associated with the satanic ritual abuse.
Definitely evil,
but not
in an intentionally satanic way.
So maybe one might consider that satanic, but it's not necessarily a deliberate, I'm worshiping Satan, so I'm going to do this as an homage to the Dark Lord kind of a thing. It's like this is just, my heart is dark and I'm going to do this horrible thing to this helpless person. And I don't know why, but some of the other things, I remember talking to some Vietnam vets, like back when I was in college. We used to have these pretty long conversations after work, and a lot of the stuff that's mentioned here were some of the things that he saw or had heard stories from his buddies over there that had happened in war. So like they do a lot of this kind of stuff just to kind of mess with your mind and to kind of, make you afraid of them and things, these horrible things if you get captured. And maybe satanic as far as the darkness involved in it, but I don't think anybody really alleged at that point that, it was like, hey, we're doing this to honor the Dark Lord. It's like we're doing this because we want to win this war, and this is our way to show you that you need to be afraid of us.
Fair enough.
I feel like it's almost like a fad. really, because I was under the impression too before we did a lot of research that back in the day, growing up through the 80s, you listen to the certain music and they're like, well, there's backmasking on there, that's satanic.
Right.
And then you read certain books like Bob Larson, if anyone remembers him. He still does exorcisms on the air.
Does he still?
He still does.
He had my my satanic
Wow.
buddy on a panel. They did a big panel thing back in the 80s, and my buddy who's high in the satanic church was on one of his panels. And they did it was like a big video.
Yeah.
It was like a 12-part series or something.
Yeah. I would listen to him on the radio quite a bit. So
Yeah, I did too.
Listen to that. Yeah.
Warren Key.
And then you think it's prevalent everywhere. And then coming back to this and doing research on it, it's not, I agree with you guys where I don't think it's as prevalent that it's satanic. I think there is ritual abuse out there that happens quite often, but not necessarily satanic. I mean, in 1994, there's even a police training video that deals with satanic ritual abuse and how Satan is a potential criminal indicator is what they said. And we'll put those links on our website. But it was even prevalent in law enforcement back in the day. So like I say, I feel it was like a late 80s, maybe 80s, 90s type focus. Mm-hmm. And then we're more into reality now where it's ritual abuse, but not necessarily satanic.
Definitely abuse where they, they're grooming small kids to be trafficked or grooming people to accept the abuse that they put on them as normal or as acceptable. And I think over and over again, repetitively, it just becomes a way of life. I read something today about actually, as a side note, about child trafficking and how everybody feels like, child sex trafficking is this, poor children locked in a dungeon somewhere and being abused in the dark in a dank basement. But actually, the lady that wrote the article said that she was trafficked for years, and her dad would take her to the amusement park, and they'd go into a clothing dressing room, and he'd walk out, and another gentleman would walk in and grab her hand and take her out and buy her candy and do horrible things to her and then bring her back. And it was like nothing ever happened. Her dad and her mom just trafficked her out until she was about 17 years old. And nobody knew. And the school was afraid to say anything because they were fairly well-to-do. And kind of a scary thing to think about those sort of things under the radar. And back in the 80s, it was probably a really scary thing to think about, satanic ritual abuse. And I can remember my mom never letting me play Dungeons and Dragons because I was going to become a devil worshiper and murder people and all these different things, which aren't true. I'd never played Dungeons and Dragons, and now I worship the devil and murder people. So clearly, there's no correlation there. So
maybe you should have played Dungeons and Dragons a little more,
right? It might have been better for me. But I think that people get, and back then you believe what you're told, and there wasn't a lot of backing things up on the internet. It was kind of all the rumor mill, And so Bob Larson's could make millions of dollars and perpetuate the lie. It is what it is.
And you did hear stuff that was kind of anecdotal things here and there that when you were trying to put the pieces together, you had an incomplete puzzle. But, when you start putting things together, it's like, oh, yeah, well, that does match with this and that. I grew up Southern Colorado, and I remember back when I was high school age, there was all these things happening kind of down in the Alamosa area. I don't know if you remember all of that, guys, where like these cattle would just end up like dead in the middle of a field, and they had been no, it wasn't that one. It wasn't, but it was like they ended up dead with no tracks around them, like they tried to originally say it was cattle being mutilated by wolves or whatever, but there were no tracks around it, and like it was precision cuts into the animal, and it was like the blood had been removed from it, so there was no blood.
Everybody was puzzled by that.
It's like this thing just appeared, and everybody's like, it was Satan. It was Satan worshipers. But that doesn't explain how there would be no tracks,
Dimensional aliens.
and you know how this thing would just appear in the middle of it. But it was stuff like that, and it was often enough that it happened that we're all kind of, what is this? And then it kind of fit. It was, and it just left everybody looking for answers. As far as I know, they still haven't found any answers to what that stuff was, because it was reported in the newspapers and all that. Yeah, that was one of the things, that it was a bunch of UFO ships dropping these things, picking them up and taking samples and dropping them off. Who knows what it was, but it was just kind of stuff that would feed into this. And then, of course, you had the Mike Warnkeys of the world who made a living off of going around the country talking about how this stuff had happened to him. And then, of course, you know, we all know at the end he admitted that he'd made it all up. He's like, oh yeah.
What was his name again?
Mike Warnke.
I'm pretty sure I saw him speak somewhere.
He was a dynamic.
What's
yeah,
that? He was a Christian dude who traveled around, and I'm almost positive that I have seen him as a kid. I saw him somewhere, maybe at New Life Church or somewhere.
I hope I'm not messing up his name and calling him
you're
somebody
right
that
on.
he's not. I'm pretty sure Mike Warnke was, and he would go around doing these things. He said he had been ritually abused as a kid, and that he gave all these Christian pep talks about it, basically talking about how you can overcome and things like that. And he wrote a bunch of books about it, and then come, you know, I don't know, 5-10 years later, he's like, yeah, I made it all up. Sorry.
That's amazing. And what made him decide to come clean?
I don't remember. I think people were challenging what it was, and he was defending it at first, and then they ended up, I think, catching him in some things that he couldn't defend. And after a while, he just came clean and said, I just made the whole thing
what a
up.
rotten bastard.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
you know,
how much money he made from all that. I mean, a substantial amount, I'm sure.
Had to have been, yeah. Had to have been. And then all of the backmasking stuff, you were talking about that, Brian. I used to be really into that stuff. Did y'all do that when your kids take your tapes or records and play them back?
Oh my gosh, so many sleepovers we had. So scary.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, I think, was one of the big ones. They were all turning backwards, and then even the Christian guys got into that. Petra, I think, had a song that they intentionally recorded the first few seconds of it backwards,
right?
Just so that you know, kind of make everybody wonder what was going on.
That was cool back then, though.
Oh my gosh,
it was.
That was so cool. I know.
I ruined Matt Summerall's mom's turntable doing that.
Oh, you did? Did you hear anything?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear anything weird?
Stuff. We had a bunch of different albums. Molly Hatchet, there was supposed to be a song that Molly Hatchet had out that was, and we swore we heard it all. I mean, you got to remember when you got, you know, 4th, 7th, or 8th grade boys in a dark room and nobody's home in a rainstorm listening to backwards music at midnight.
Right.
You know? God, we were so freaked out. It was cool though. Yeah.
It was cool.
Well, and some of it legit, like they intentionally recorded stuff backwards on there. You know, like the Beatles on what was it, Revolution 9, where they intentionally recorded it where it said, when he played it backwards, it was "Turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man," and they did that. And I think even ELO, I think, did one like that, where it was intentionally recorded backwards, and it said something about turning back. I don't remember, but so there was some legit stuff out there which just fed into all of the people that were telling everybody that the devil's in all of this music, and then I think some of them turned it and did it just because it was making them, you know, it was giving them publicity, and publicity was giving them sales. And Alice Cooper, I think, did that. Ozzy Osbourne kind of did that, but
I forgot about Alice Cooper. He's a heck of a golfer, I guess. He comes out to the Air Force Academy every once in a while. And when I was a kid, I used to run around the Air Force Academy a lot, and I saw him out there one time right by the golf course. And man, He looked 100 then. He looks like 1,000 years old. That guy has not aged well.
Yeah, I don't know, he hasn't aged well.
He'll outlive us all, probably.
What's that?
Probably. He's a strong Christian now. He's disavowed all his earlier life, and the guy has taken up the cause of promoting Jesus now. He's him and Dave Mustane.
It's funny how people get a change of heart when they get close to the end, isn't it? Your priorities tend to change.
Yeah, there are no atheists in a foxhole, right?
There's not. No, there's not. No.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Dave Mustane a while back. He had given it to, I think, 60 Minutes or one of those organizations, where he was actually talking about where he was involved in satanic. It wasn't abuse, but it was satanic rituals. I don't know if you ever seen that.
No,
where he's talking about that. Yeah, he's Dave Mustane, of course, one of the founders of Metallica, and the founder of the group Megadeth. And he talked about how when he was younger, he looked to the satanic rituals as a way to boost his energy and to get the powers of darkness behind his music, so that he could sell more and write better music and things like that. And he would do things.
Well, clearly it worked.
Well, I guess so. So he was talking about that and how it he would do things like blood covenants with people. He's like, yeah, this was before we knew about AIDS.
Right.
So he would cut himself and have somebody else cut himself.
We did that
and
as
have
kids
this
all the
blood
time.
covenant.
Like if you were making a deal, like if it was a big deal, we'd cut our hands and then shake hands. We thought it was
I guess I never made that big of a deal.
I mean, it's a pretty big
I
deal.
never cut myself.
Did either. I had somebody try to do that to me one time. I'm like, what do you think I am, fool, man? Even before I knew about AIDS, I was like, well, I'm going to cut myself for you.
Yeah, never anything that big.
But anyway, it wasn't like the ritual abuse kind of stuff that we were talking about here. But obviously there are little pockets of that kind of stuff that do go on, and you can see if you go ahead.
Well, I just feel like most people would be so appalled by that. Like I feel like there's a reason predators like that in prison have to be protected. Even criminals will kill people like that. Like to ritualistically abuse children and things like that. Like you're the lowest of the low. You could be a car thief, a bank robber, and still you're at a much higher level in my mind and in their mind as someone who abuses kids, especially ritualistically, continuously. You've got to be the most heinous form of life to do those things. And I just can't imagine that it's and maybe I'm wrong. I could be really naive about this. I just can't imagine that it's so prevalent that there's, underlying giant conspiracies about it. Although, when you look at the Epstein thing, and I think, even with Epstein, lines get blurred, right? So you have an island full of girls that are apparently he would always say that he was always scouting for Victoria's Secret and he's looking for new models and things like that. So you have girls that are legitimately of age, and then you have girls that are slightly younger and almost legitimately of age, all the way down to, I think, 14 they said. Yeah, and so I think the lines get blurred. You're on an island full of 21-year-old girls. It's a whole different critter than an island full of 17-year-old girls. But I think when those guys get that much money and power, and they can do whatever they want, maybe they do. You do get pockets of people like that are willing to engage in that kind of activity.
Well, and there were a lot of, there were a lot of people that went to that island too. I mean, there were a ton of people going to that island.
Probably for a lot of different reasons, really.
Right.
Business deals are made and things like that. But I'm sure there were, what did they say? Bill Clinton was on his plane 30-something times, 32 times. And the picture he had of Bill Clinton in his entryway, did you hear about that?
No.
There's a painting in Epstein's entryway on the island in the house, or maybe it was in the New York house, of Bill Clinton in a blue dress, sitting in a like lazy boy kind of sideways with his knees hanging over the edge and looking out. And it's just interesting that everybody points to it and says, man, you know, him and Bill spent so much time together. Why would he ever, and I think it was Joe Rogan that said, why would he put that picture in his entryway except as a shout out to Bill Clinton, like, yeah, man, I got the goods on you, bitch. And you're going to do what I want, kind of a thing, you know?
He was in a blue dress.
A blue dress.
Bill Clinton was in a blue dress.
You can pull it up right now. It's interesting.
I do need a painting for my walkway here in the house.
Right?
Maybe.
I think I've seen that painting.
Maybe
It's
get the
pretty
Epstein
messed up.
special, maybe.
Man, that guy had so many secrets. I wish we could have kept him alive.
Hey, why can't Huff Paranormal go in and try to contact him? You know, with the spirit box?
Boy, that's interesting. We should contact him. I don't
Why
know if
can't
he'll
he
do
go
it.
in and
I don't
try to
know if
talk
he'd
to
do
him?
it live.
He'd
But it
probably
might
get-
be worth a shot. You know, the thing is, Epstein, I mean, he might. I mean, he's definitely a predator. I don't know that he ever murdered anybody, but he's definitely a predator. Bad guy.
It's almost worse in my mind than murdering someone.
Do you
honestly
think?
If you're like a predator and you're ruining the lives of all these girls,
No, you're never the same.
Because you know, once that
Yeah.
kind of stuff happens, you're never the same. I mean, you can go through all the counseling that you
Agreed.
want,
yeah,
Agreed.
but
Yeah.
it's made its mark on you, and
Yep.
you're a different person. So I mean, it's not like this is condoning murder or anything. You know, we don't anybody hear that.
Yeah,
yeah, no,
but I mean, no, I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's as bad. Had we found out that he was making snuff films with these girls and then just choking them out and killing them when he was done having sex with them, we'd probably think it was way worse than you know, flying 17-year-old girls around the world to stay at mansions and give people massages and have sex with them. I think it's different than like killing them and taking away everything they could ever have or be by murdering them. I don't think it's as bad personally.
I think it's different. You're combining the two almost. You're combining the sexual abuse and torture with murder versus just plain old murder.
Just like
And if you
shooting them in
separate
the
the
back of
two.
the head at a bus station.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. If someone just plain old murder versus ritual sexual abuse.
Well, if I had to choose, I'd probably take the abuse and get some therapy and get over it and live my life. But you know, there's others that would probably take the bullet. I think it's pretty awful to get over. And I think you have trust issues for the rest of your life.
Especially
or
if
at
you
least most
develop
of your
different
life.
personalities. You'll
Maybe.
always have those.
But a lot of people that go
Definitely.
through that kind of abuse do not develop multiple personalities because it's not as far as I know, it's not like physical abuse like beatings and burnings and you know those kind of things as much as it is mental abuse where it's you know, these girls were taken onto yachts and taken onto islands and
Yeah.
stuff, and for them that was like normal, right? And they would go give massages and they were trained to give these massages and that was normal. But I don't know that anyone was ever like punched in the face, restrained, brutally raped. Nobody ran
Yeah.
a train on them. Like,
Yeah, I don't think
you know
so.
what I'm saying? Like, I think there's different levels.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was watching that 60 Minutes show there's one from
I love
Australia
60
about
Minutes
this. I was
Australia.
interviewing one of the girls that was at Epstein's
Brian
thing.
hates them. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, do you?
That beginning's
I'd not-
horrible. I can't stand that clicking sound.
I had not seen anything from the Epstein thing until I watched that the other day, and yeah, she was talking about. She didn't go into the details of it because I guess it's it's a public show, but she was saying that there was pretty bad abuse involved. That it wasn't just hey, let's do a massage and then let's have sex.
Got it.
It
I didn't know that.
was some pretty nasty stuff going on. But regardless, it's not. I mean, none of it's good, right? We can all agree that it's all bad stuff. But
No,
Yeah,
they all got to go to jail.
it's horrible.
probably
They
not
all gotta
Right.
go.
satanic ritual abuse, in that they were doing it at an altar. You hear all the Illuminati stuff going on, and that's kind of the picture that you get from it, is that they're all
Mhm.
standing around some altar and they're about ready to stab somebody and kill them, and that's what all this whole stuff is about. I don't necessarily think that's it might be happening. I don't know. Like you said earlier, this very well may be, if they were able to keep Epstein as quiet as they were, maybe it is more prevalent than what. I mean,
They may be fairly untouchable, and I think that's part of the Illuminati sort of the mystique around it is those people are all unreachable, untouchable. So many layers, covering them and covering their tracks. But I mean, when you look at the way Epstein died, it's
right.
remarkable. It's remarkable that 2 video cameras malfunctioned in the same night. It's remarkable that both guards fell asleep for 3 hours right when the cameras failed that had been working for 24 months before that. It's remarkable that they just happened to put him for the first 3 weeks. He had somebody in his cell with him the whole time, and then they just happened to move that guy out, even though they were supposed to have somebody else in with him all the time. It's remarkable that he was on suicide watch, and then he just wasn't anymore. Like, all those things, clearly,
Right.
in my mind, he was done in. And I think if they could get their hands on her, they would do the same. I'm pretty sure somebody said that they think she's either at Guantanamo or Supermax. And if they get her in there, gentlemen, everything we have in this country
I'm surprised she's not dead already.
an illusion,
honestly.
if they can do that.
I saw an infographic a while back, and it was not related to this, but I think it applies to it.
Yeah.
They were talking about the income inequality in the world, and they're saying that the top 300 people, you could fit them all on a 747. The top 300 people own more in income and assets than the bottom 4 billion people. 300 people.
Has it ever been different?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you go back into history and do that, but I know we do now. So regardless whether it's been different in the past or not, if you got 300 people that have more income and wealth than the bottom 4 billion, imagine what you can get away with.
So much.
Who could you not buy out?
Well,
who could you not
Well,
bribe?
then the federal judge, you guys heard about that, right? The federal judge that's in charge of his
maybe
keeper,
not.
what's her name? Do you know what his handler's name was? Epstein's girlfriend or whatever. I forget her name. Anyway, the federal judge in charge of that case, the FedEx worker showed up to her house, shot her 20-year-old child dead, murdered her husband, and then left and killed himself. Now, there's only 2 ways that happens, right? One is like MK Ultra brand mind control, or they let that guy know, hey, we've got your family, and if you don't do this and kill yourself, they're all going to die. So get out there and do our bidding, and we'll see you on the other side. Or they tell the guy, hey, we need this hit done, and we'll meet you and get your money for you as soon as it's over with. And he shows up to get his money,
Right.
and they disappear him and have him kill himself. But to have that kind of power and control and to not be afraid to do that to a federal judge is mind-blowing to me. There are some very powerful people that don't want this thing getting out.
Yeah, unquestionably. And so, people say, well, nobody would do that kind of stuff. That's horrible. And, you could see, if you believe this kind of stuff, if you believe the videos, which who knows what to believe anymore. But, we saw the ISIS videos a few years back of where these guys are beheading people in public. They're crucifying people. They're eating the livers out of their captors. This kind of stuff. Huh? Oh yeah, yeah, but all kinds of anything that you could possibly think of that's just a horrible, sick thing to do, and it's out there. It's in the heart of man to do this kind of stuff. So I can't buy the idea that this kind of stuff would not happen simply because it's just evil. Because it does happen. Again, assuming that you can believe any of this stuff. I mean, maybe all the videos are faked, and who knows anymore. But you got to know that at least through history, it's happened. There's been archaeological evidence of this stuff happening in civilizations,
Like the Aztecs.
that they dig it up and they find this kind of a mass killings that have gone on, sacrificial. They're sacrificing virgins to the volcano gods or whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, this stuff happened. We know it happened at some point in time. So, maybe we're just more evolved now. Is I guess that what they're saying, that it doesn't happen now, but I believe that it does. And
I think we just can hide it better now.
Oh, I very
People can
much
just
doubt
hide
that.
it better.
I don't think we're more involved. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
The world's never been more connected than it is now. And I think people try and hide things. I think people hid it a lot better back in the day because you could, right? It was easy to hide. You put on a facade and go to work every day and do your thing. But I think I'm shocked that it's kind of reminiscent of Prohibition, right? When the mob ruled the courts and the police departments back east, and if you went against them, they would just drive by your house and kill you. And I feel like that's kind of the same mentality with the Epstein thing. And if only for the fact that we got to root these people out and get to the bottom of it, people are probably going to die. And they need to get some special prosecutors that aren't afraid, who don't have family, who can't be gotten to, just like they did back then, and root these guys out and get them gone and out of power. I'm sure there will always be corruption in power like that, but if you can find a loose thread and you can pull it, I think they should spare no expense and go as far as they can possibly go and root these guys out. What about Prince Andrew? Right? I mean, that guy, what a piece of work he is, right? Can he even be prosecuted as a royal? Like, is it possible to send him to prison?
I don't know. He's still denying everything, right? Like he never knew anyone.
Of course.
Everything like that.
He's not going to cop to anything,
No.
except for the photos that he doesn't remember with the 16-year-old girls, right, and stuff like that.
No, he says they're doctored.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they are, but I don't know, man. People say they were there, and then there's photos. And the people that say they were there don't have billions of dollars to pay for doctored photos. So, who's to believe? But they should follow.
Yeah, I don't know. Even the people in charge.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It just goes so deep.
Too deep.
We'll never find out. Right.
You can do a quick YouTube search, and you'll see that this stuff, the SRA actually does exist on a micro level, at least.
The what?
Right. There are cases on a small level. This Satanic Ritual Abuse.
Okay. I forgot we were anachronizing all these things.
So
my bad.
So, like, most of the stories that you find are like over in Tanzania or South Africa, somewhere over there, where culture tends to accept it more than our culture does. And so I think I saw one recently down in Brazil where it happened, one over in Tanzania. And these things, so that it does happen from people who basically are looking for power. I think in the one in Brazil, they were trying to summon the power over women. They wanted to be sexually attractive. And if you saw these dudes, these guys needed it. I mean, they were some skanky dudes. I can understand why they were trying to summon the Dark Lord to get them some women, but realistically, there are people that are looking for power, and who in the world is not looking for some sort of power, right? I mean, that's what Hitler, Stalin, all of these guys. That's why they did what they did. They wanted power. They wanted They wanted control, and it's like that's never changed. It's always been there. And what do you do? What do you do? What will you do for Klondike? No, what will you
Well, they don't have
do
Klondike
for
bars
power?
in Brazil, probably,
What
or Tanzania, dude.
what kind of
So you probably do a
For
lot.
Klondike,
what kind of things?
you
It
don't
is
want to
hot
know
down
what
there.
I'll do for a Klondike.
It's pretty hot down there. Pretty hot down there. So I mean, maybe
Yeah, you could probably with a box of Klondike bars, you could probably go far down there. I'm guessing.
But I mean, realistically, people looking for power, people looking, and just like the love potions. How long have people talked about that? Give me a love potion to make me sexy. You know, to make this woman love me. It's been going on for thousands of years. People trying
I
to
find that
come up
money
with that kind
pretty
of
much
stuff.
that makes you sexy to women after a while. Like just if you're well heeled, you're pretty damn sexy. Even Brian could get laid with as much money as he
Yeah.
makes. It's
Yeah,
incredible to me.
sure.
You have a face for radio,
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah,
awesome.
it'll take me a lot of drinking a lot of people's blood for me to get that sexy. Just saying. So, what else did you find anywhere else other than like a lot of examples in Brazil or outside of the U.S.?
Well, now say Justin Bieber was allegedly exposing satanic ritual abuse that happened to him. So I started looking into that. I saw these posts that he had spoken at some church and he was talking about it. So I'm like, well, let's look into it. So I did do that, and he apparently denied that it had actually happened to him. So somebody had made that up just to make a point. However, I did find in my research that Justin Bieber is actually a shape-shifting lizard man.
Whoa, no way.
I heard that.
Shape-shifting lizard man. So it's
that's
real.
great.
It was witnessed by hundreds of fans at the airport down in Perth, Australia. So there's that.
So what was witnessed? What did they see?
You can Google it and you can find the video that they're using as evidence that he's a shape-shifting lizard. So I watched it. I watched it with my wife over and over again. You had to keep on watching it over and over again. I'll leave that to y'all to Google that so
Fair
that you
enough.
can see
I will do this.
exactly what a lizard man that lives among us and sings great songs
I've always
looks
suspected.
like.
Always suspected.
Yeah, well, as have I. It's just proof now. We see
Well,
it on the internet.
Would he sing as well in lizard form versus human form?
He was running from his fans because they wanted to grab him or whatever. And apparently, when he's stressed, he shapeshifts uncontrollably.
Circle, rectangle,
And
or what kind of shape?
So yeah, there was a lot of
Rectangle.
Lizard shapes. Lizard, yeah, kind of like the Incredible Hulk, right? You know how when he gets stressed, Bruce Banner turns into the green dude. So apparently Justin Bieber, when he gets stressed, turned into a lizard man. So
wow, so it must be true.
You can watch
Absolutely.
it. It's on YouTube, so it's true.
So if a fan like went after him and they could probably easily pull off one of his arms or something, he could just grow it back, right? Because isn't that what lizards do?
At least his tail.
I think only tails. Yeah.
Only tails, not an arm.
Yeah. I don't. Where do you suppose he keeps his tail when he shapeshifts?
Duct tapes it.
Tapes it down the front of his pants so he looks like attractive to the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
My tail.
Yeah.
Excited.
Is that your tail, or are you just happy to see me?
One thing I did want to mention about satanic ritual abuse and the abuses of power. There was a story of the Kellers. Did you hear about the Kellers? Spent 20 years in jail for satanic ritual abuse on kids at their daycare. They own 3 daycares. I think it was in Spokane area or Washington somewhere. And on the testimony of one doctor, they were both sentenced to 47 years in prison for ritual abuse on children who didn't really have any memory of it, but they called up these so-called repressed memories. And the kids, as they got older, many of them recanted. And then finally, the doctor admitted that he had falsified all of the information, and they were released from prison 20 years later as an almost elderly couple. Still stayed faithful to each other while they were in separate prisons, wrote to each other every day for 20 years, and finally were released after the government stole everything from their lives and villainized them and make them pay for something they never did. So it's a good tale of, you got to be careful. It's just like the Salem witch trials or anything else. You really need to be careful about following the truth and perceived truth and what people feel and think, because as a kid, I can remember a therapist telling me that I had been sexually abused, and I just didn't remember it. And I cried bullshit on that and didn't go back. But I found out later that particular therapist had abuse issues in her past, and that almost everyone she spoke with, she tried to convince that they had previous abuse issues. So you just got to be really careful who you trust and who you listen to. I'm sure it happens, but
Well, the mind is fragile. I was watching on Netflix. I forget what the name of the show is, but there would be someone who they thought killed someone, and they would take them into the room. These are the detectives, and the person in reality was innocent, but they would take them in there and interrogate them for 20 to 30 hours and put suggestions in their mind, and that person would come out and write out that they actually committed the crime. So yeah, it happened. I think it happens all the time. So, under duress for hours and hours and hours, and people putting suggestions in your mind, who knows what you could believe? Yeah. You'd come out and.
Well, I've talked to both my boys, my adult boys, and I always tell them, hey man, no matter what happens, if you're ever arrested, if they ever want to question you, you always just tell me I want your lawyer. Always, always, always. I can never understand these people, innocent or guilty, that decide to go into an interrogation room with a bunch of police and let them talk to them for hours when every single thing they say can and will be used against them in a court of law and not have representation. It's the dumbest thing you could ever do, because a lot of these people are innocent, man, and there's a lot of people in jail that don't belong there because of things like that. You just have to really be careful.
Agreed.
It's like that old movie Gaslighting, where the principle is that you know something is true. Maybe you witnessed it firsthand, maybe you experienced it firsthand, and then somebody comes and says, "Oh, right. No, you didn't really see that. That's not what happened. Here's what happened," and they start putting suggestions into your mind. Isn't it possible that maybe you're remembering this wrong? Isn't it possible that maybe this is what you saw? And they keep on doing this. And they get you to question your own recollection. And after a while, your own recollection becomes inextricably intertwined with their recollection. Well, what they've implanted into you as a suggestion. And it's just a kind of mind control. It's a way to get you to not really trust your own instincts. Go on to conspiracy theories. If you look at the old 9/11 things, when they first talked to eyewitnesses, to the people at the Twin Towers, people who actually saw the collision of the second plane, or the first plane, I think it was the first one. They said, well, what happened? And the guy's like, well, it was a small, looked like a twin engine, a real small plane that hit it. And there was 3 or 4 people that said, oh yeah, it was this real small thing. And later on, they're like, oh no, this is not what you saw. It was a 747. Here's the pictures. And so you look at it and go, I wonder, did they actually see what they said that they saw? Because a 747 is a very different plane than a small twin engine. So maybe these people just didn't know what an aircraft, they just weren't, they didn't know what they were, or maybe they saw what they saw, and then it was basically taken from them later on. So who knows? Who knows it? Who knows?
Well, Any
Gotta be careful.
final thoughts on satanic ritual abuse?
It's bad. It's a bad thing.
It's bad, but it's not as prevalent
It
as
is bad.
suggested, or at least suggested in the past. Anyway.
Not as prevalent as some people would have you. I mean, people have made their living on perpetuating this sort of thing. We've seen it. And so, it's always good to do your research. It's always good to keep an open mind. It's always good not to believe everything you read and go down the rabbit hole, I guess, and figure it out. But, there'll always be people like that try to capitalize on the latest scare, whatever the latest craziness
for
is.
sure.
Yeah, preconceived notions in any kind of a thought, whether that's SRA, whether that's trust in the media on something, whatever it is, preconceived notions, you always need to go into any discussion thinking, what if what I believe on this is wrong?
Could be.
Agreed.
I've had that happen to me before.
The world's a crazy place. I've never experienced that, but I've heard about it.
You've heard someone has done that before.
Never experienced actually being wrong myself. It's just, I've seen other people who
I thought I
went through that,
but I was wrong.
It was devastating to them.
I've been devastated. I'm tearing up right now. In fact.
Terrible.
So sad.
It's terrible.
All right.
Beautiful.
Well, Senior Matt, you're up.
I'm up. Thanks for listening this week. We have some new listeners in Spain. Welcome to the show, and thanks so much for listening. Send us an email as to where you are listening so that we can give you a shout out. If you enjoy the podcast, please go to our website and click on the podcast magazine link. Look for the Hot 50, click that, and vote away. Thanks to everyone that has given us a 5-star rating this past week. Thanks for the feedback that you gave us all on the podcast and how we're doing. We take your feedback very seriously. Please send us your comments, suggestions, complaints, or questions to show@ourdifferenttake.com. You can also call our voicemail hotline to submit questions or complain, or do an impersonation, really anything that you want. Just call 970-343-4594. Don't forget to rate us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the podcast. We're now heard on Ghana, the largest streaming service in India. We're also now on Deezer, the French streaming service. You can hear us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, radio.com, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, and everywhere you like to get your favorite podcasts. We now have a YouTube channel called Our Different Take. Please subscribe and click on the bell so that you'll be alerted when a new podcast is released.
Peace.
Peace out.
Take care.